Hello, folks, and welcome to the October 16th Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll call the meeting to order and declare a quorum. Ethan will not be in attendance this evening, and we'll start with pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And as usual, if any board members have a conflict of interest, please make sure we disclose it. Adjustments to the agenda. We have moved a couple of items up to the top so that folks traveling don't have to wait all night for us. So I will give the floor to Sheriff Nichols.
Well,
Thank you so much for coming this evening.
yeah, thank you for the invite, Joe, and I appreciate the opportunity to come up and just basically have a discussion. With you all regarding the last meeting ahead, there were some things said that weren't quite on our agenda, so I just want to make sure that we have just a two-way conversation to discuss what our plans are, the sheriff's office for the future for the area. We have no intention of not covering any of the plantations. As a matter of fact, any more than any other town out there. And I couldn't if I wanted to anyways. And so what we are planning on doing though, we are trying to add additional manpower to our current staff. We're down right now 2 positions that we're in the process of filling as we speak. And we've got permission from the commissioners during the last budget process to add an additional person. And we are looking at adding additional people down the road through grants and whatnot to increase our manpower to help with the increase in this area. This northwestern part of Franklin County has grown exponentially since the whole COVID thing. And plus with the the saddleback and all, I mean, it's just we have to adjust to the times. Our calls for service have increased in this area, and so we are in that process, just so you all know, right up front of adding manpower. But it's a slow process. I mean, like I said, we've got 2 people on the hook right now where we're bringing into our hiring process, but it's not an instantaneous thing, as you probably know, and it takes a while. And we hope within the next year that we'll have these vacancies filled and people on the road, and hopefully we don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. But it's always a constant rotation, so it's one of those things. But I just want to let you folks know that and give you the opportunity to ask questions, if you had any questions about it or anything. So back at you.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Do you have any suggestions for how to go about getting additional manpower?
For Rangeley yourself,
Well, in general, it's just a general question.
that is a
In
problem
the
that
police
we're
coverage.
dealing with statewide.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is you have to attract people to come here, and whatever that takes, that's between you and your citizens and the budget of what that's going to entail. Ideally, I'd be looking at guys who are retiring from other agencies out of state and bring them in here to work this area, nice resort town, so to speak, but it still has its small town issues. It's a perfect location for a retiree to come, as your chief could probably tell you, and so those are the type of folks you're probably looking for, mature individuals. You may be able to get lucky and get some young people to come up here to start their career, but the thing with young folks, they come and they stay for a little while and they go to greener pastures sometimes. So there's no formula that works out there. I spent 23 years in the state police. It's the same thing going on there right now. Back then people used to fight, now they can hardly, they've got more money than anybody and they can't bring people on board. So it's just one of those things that I think it's all about marketing. Creative marketing to make people come in. We're doing the same thing. We've had to change our, the way we, offer insurance. We're in the process of working that out with our current union and the commissioner's office. What we are trying to do is attract veteran officers and families to come to this area. So, and I think what we've seen is the biggest hindrance for us has been our insurance, health insurance, of course. And with the way we're trying to change things, which I anticipate will be changed, it'll be more attractive to bring people over. So it's not so much the money as it is maybe other things, other benefits you might want to take a look at. In retirement, same thing, but I think retirement is pretty much standardized with state retirement, so. That's what we're doing, and I think it's gonna work.
Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
I have a question.
Madam Chair, what, you don't have to go into great detail, but like you said, this area is vast. It's a lot of territory and
Yeah.
we've increased our population. How often is the sheriff's office here? Like in our vicinity, in whether it be the plantations or Rangeley proper? I mean, just to give us a flavor of the current presence that you have, even though you're down 2 officers.
Yeah, we're up here every week. We're up here every weekend. I think I try to incorporate this information in your yearly report. I think you look at your yearly report, there's a page in there to give you an idea of what we did last year. And it's probably comparable, the numbers are gonna be a little bit higher, but just to give you an idea of what we have done, not including what Rangeley's done too. I mean, it's that busy, it's a busy place. I mean, ideally, these guys should have at least 5 people working here, or at least 4 minimum. But 5 would be ideal, for a 24-hour coverage type of thing. That's what you really need to have here to make it work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Yes.
Bob Crown, Franklin County Commissioner. The other thing that's happened to the whole county is that we've lost the state police roll call. Yeah, I can't remember how many days a week it was, but that supplemented some of the patrol here, and now it's gone. But it's gone everywhere in the state, not just Franklin County. So that's kind of what we're combating right now and trying to overcome.
It added to our burden. But I remember when I was a trooper here 100 years ago, we had the same arrangement going on with Rangeley, 25, 30 years ago as well, when they had just very few numbers working here, and whoever was covering the north would also help cover Rangeley. And it was just an unwritten agreement between the sheriff's office and the state police. But since the state police have now vacated, they've been gone since 2019, it's been us all the time. And so we do our best. So some calls we have to have held for when one of the Rangeley officers are available, but other than that, we try our best to be here, especially if something major is going on. But yeah, we're going to still be here. We have to come through here anyway, so there's no bridge over Rangeley.
Thank you again so much for coming. I appreciate it.
I hope what I had to say has been a little helpful.
Very.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
And
I have one question.
Yeah.
More a comment. Reverend Tony McNaughton. I retired here full time in 2012. My wife and I sold our camp and built it all around them. So we, our residents of Rangeley, love it and try to be as supportive of the town in any way that we can. I would just like to say, if over the years, there's been discussions, should Rangeley have a police department? Should it not have a police department? How big should it be? I agree with him. I think 5 would be fantastic. It's gonna be hard. Everyone knows when you live here, you make a lot of decisions that or give up things if you've come from down country. You want to go to the pharmacy here, it's 81 miles round trip. I went 3 times the rate at Farmington last week. We have AJ, who was one of the state police, county sheriff's officers who lives here in Rangeley. Great guy, I think, hands down, does a great job. He helped me and my wife out when a moose hit us back in June. But he wasn't strong at the time and could come. Rangeley is fortunate to have a excellent chief. A lot of police experience down in the York, Kittery area. When he came up here, he brought that experience. The officer that we have with him now, I think is excellent. And has been said, the town has continued to grow and continues to grow. And that brings all sorts of concerns that often the police have to play a part in helping and so forth. So I would be one who would always campaign for the presence and keep trying and trying, as difficult as it is, when you, to get people. I have a son as a high school principal. He was up here one time when they were hiring a new principal at the school, and he looked at the salary things. He came to Rotary with me. He said, Dad, you know, you gotta hand it to people that are coming up here to do that. He said, we're paying starting teachers in New Jersey what you're paying your principal. Now he said, you know, you get people who make a commitment to come because they really like it or it's the start of their job. And I think some of our police here maybe in that category, they're beginning new, they've gone through the State Police Academy or whatever training event or place is there for them. But we need them up here. If you have a car accident or you have any kind of situation where you need a police officer and we didn't have the chief and the officer that's with him, and the closest sheriff's officer is in Strong or something, think of the time that he has to take to come up here or she. You look at the amount of area that they cover, you know, how many miles per, when AJ helped me out with the moose situation, that's the side of Madrid. I asked him, how many miles do you put on these vehicles per year? I was astounded when he told me the amount of mileage they do. And I'll just end with this one illustration. Back in the late 60s, maybe 1970, when I was here, we had only one police presence as far as the town was concerned, and that was Pete Durrell, who was the town constable. The sheriff's department, you know, was the backup in the state. And Pete was also the barber. He had not yet become the sheriff, and then was a barber. It's a true story. I'm sitting in his barber shop, which is now where Barry has his beauty parlor. I've got the sheet around me, and somebody raced through town in a car. Said, Tony, I gotta leave you, I'll be back, just sit it tight. He went off to handle whatever that situation was, a ticket or something. And I just sat there with the thing around me, the toilet paper around the neck, until he came back to finish the haircut. I certainly don't think we ever want to return to that kind of thing. That's Rangeley is a unique place because of its distance, and so many variables, pay. I mean, we go through town employees even here. You know, I had some issues that we were dealing with, not personally, but with the code enforcement officer. All good people, but by the time you get ready for the next meeting, they're gone. And they're hiring a new code enforcement. So that's always going to be, that's a given. But if we ever came to the point where votes were taken or any decision being made about the police force, I would be one of the first to campaign for how important it is to have their presence and to make it whatever we could eventually continue to afford.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Tony. I'm not sure if you heard the last meeting, but that is this board's intent is to have a police force, and whatever that looks like and works best for this community is what we're aspiring to.
I think the Highlander communicated when they did your things. I did read that. I was just reiterating.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Any further discussion on that particular topic? Wonderful. I will entertain a motion to go into an executive session.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, Tom. Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. Go into an executive session pursuant to MRSA Title 1, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, 405, labor negotiations. All those in favor?
And we'll let you back in here. So
Okay, thank you.
Sweet, sweet Tony. Yes.
and rock and roll, huh?
No,
All right, folks, I will declare us out of executive session at 6:45 with no action to take. And we'll give,
This, so,
absolutely, sir, thank you. We'll give the public a couple of minutes to file back in and we'll hit the agenda running.
But I am here request.
All right, so we'll review and approve the meeting minutes of the October 2nd Board of Selectmen regular meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 2nd. Board of Selectmen meeting.
Motion by Jim,
Second,
second by Wendy. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Boards and committees, sewer commission chair, Jonathan. I am so excited that there's a chairperson here with an update since I asked. I'm so happy.
Here
Okay,
we go. So, I'm here by request of the board, to report, I guess, from the sewer commission. The biggest thing on our plate right now is we have rate study and public hearings, we set for that probably in February or March. For increase in rate. Currently, Chick Hill and the sewer department are kind of running underwater. Shortfalls, I cannot quote direct numbers, but 40 to 60 million. So, fees and rates have been stagnant for almost 2 decades now. None of it's followed on a step increase with inflation. We've increased demands in town. That being said, though, Chick Hill is a healthy and it's a healthy facility. We're only prior reports, it's only the lagoons, we're only at 1/3 capacity, and it's 20 years old. Going from there, we wrapped up most of the out of compliance sewer connections that are in town. There's one outstanding right now. But we're working with that individual to bring it back online, or the business may be closed and then it's a non-issue. And in your packet today there, I think Joe sent you guys a letter for new sewer connection rate increases. Currently Rangeley was at 180 a bedroom. And has been since anyone can remember. It is woefully low. And so right now the board in the October 10th meeting proposed to increase sewer connection fees. So this is for new construction. Connecting the Rangeley sewer at $1,000 a bedroom. That brings us in line more with communities that are similar to ours. Carabassett's, they just go to the straight fees, $3,000, whether it's a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a 5-bedroom. We voted for $1,000 a bedroom. That being said, in the past 3 years or so, we didn't have hard data on this, but 15 to 20 or so projects that were around Rangeley sewer. If our fees had been closer to this 1,000 or at this 1,000, we wouldn't be quite so far underwater at Chick Hill either. So our rates and fees are, we're bringing them up to the modern era. Well, further discussion or questions be made, I'll do my best. I will not quote chapter and verse out of the ordinance.
We won't expect you to this time.
Right there,
Just
I can carry it.
Did anyone on the board have any questions for Jonathan?
I just have a brief one, and I just know this from some other communities that have dealt with the connectivity issue with connecting it to the term bedrooms, and especially in resort communities. I mean, I'm sure you have definitions in your language, but I would look into bunkhouses and things like that so that it's really specific. Because a bunkhouse this is what happened in another community, it was they assumed it was 1 bedroom and it had 8 beds. So I would just say be careful and thoughtful of your definitions.
That's a good point, and thanks for that. We've run into that on permits before as well. Square footage, et cetera.
Right.
And then also, I guess the only point is we have a suggestion, obviously it's not like today, that these new rate increases should happen January 1. and so forth.
Jonathan, just to be clear and for the record, the sewer commission has the authority to raise these particular rates themselves. Without any note, sorry, that's a statement.
Oh.
It's a statement. The sewer commission, for the record, they have the authority to raise these rates, so they're just seeking from us kind of a confirmation that we understand the reasoning behind it and we support the decision to do this. If you're comfortable with the use of the word bedroom, that was going to be my only caveat, because I saw the use of the word bedroom in a totally different ordinance create all kinds of issues. So if you're comfortable with the use of that language versus square footage or some other mechanism to kind of control the fees, then I'm good.
Okay. I guess I'll bring that to my board as well, I guess maybe that's why I carried out, I don't even know why they have a flat fee of 3,000.
Okay.
It could be a square footage, but, so I guess maybe we could, it could equate just a little bit there.
Other than that, I assume that the board is in full support of the sewer commission's decision to increase fees. And what was the date? You don't have the date yet for the rate.
We proposed January 1.
Oh, sorry, no, for the rate study. The other fee question. You said February or March. Do you have a date just
We're
yet?
still working on that. There's a few deals that are, a few details to iron out. Jeff Preble was gonna back, there were some calculations on, the stub fee and then the cubic footage fee. Like that, if that one stays stagnant, that would probably come up, it would offset the other ones. In a broad stroke here, it'll, or there's probably the most palatable one is the step increase. Looking at an 8% increase, this year. This is for sewer, right?
Yeah.
But this could change due to just increasing the stub fee could offset these other ones. And then 8% the following year, and that brings everything kind of back to the level. And then it can follow, or it can kind of just march along with a little more basic inflation.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. I appreciate
So
you.
that's not set in stone, because we have to have all the due time for public hearings, et cetera, et cetera.
Perfect.
Thanks for going on.
Thank you so
Right,
much.
same here.
We were also provided the sewer commission regular meeting minutes and the comprehensive review committee. All right, consent items.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Liquor license for the corner bar.
Make a motion to approve the liquor license for the corner bar.
Motion by Jim. Second by Sam. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Waste management solid waste agreement. It's time for that again. Joe, can you just give kind of a quick update?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. There is a proposal from Waste Management for renewal of our solid waste agreement with them. They handle shingles, MSW, and OBW. They handle oversized bulky waste. They take that away. There's a truck fee or a hauling fee associated with that. It's cheaper if they do a double. It's called a double with the truck and trail behind it. And the tipping fees are separate. It all goes to Morris Water to the landfill. In a nutshell, it's a 5% increase year over year for 5 years. The contract that right now has a 3% increase year over year. They're not interested in meeting in the middle. I tried that, but they remember they were trying to, they requested us a year or so ago to voluntarily go to 5%, which the agreement allows them to ask us to do that, and we didn't have to do it, we didn't. You know, the cost of inflation and so forth, you know, they're trying to keep up. So it's 5%, 5 years, most of the other terms are the same. I did look into the option of possibly sending it to another facility with the type, the tipping fees were more and the trial was similar, so it really didn't make much sense to do that. And we've had good luck with waste management. Back when I called them this summer when we had a problem with VFD, it was immediately they sent a courtesy can up to handle the overflow, no charge, you know, other than tipping it. You know, so there's no charge to rent the can or anything like that. They're very responsive to us in terms of emergencies like that, but also day-to-day operations. The swaps are timely and so we haven't had any issues with them. And I did get a list of towns that they cover in central and western Maine, and our tipping fees are lower. I think I put that in my notes. Anywhere from $4 to just over $6 per ton lower than the average for other folks. So the rates are, they check out. And I spoke with Eustace, he called, one of the selectmen called a while ago for the question not related to this, but he said that they renewed theirs, said, you know, that they had a good luck with waste management, so their rates were good also, so. I recommend renewing it for 5 years.
When was the last time we went out to bid for these services?
I don't believe it happened 5 years ago, which would have been 19, so this current agreement runs out in 24. So it would have been 5 years prior to that if it did go. I think the town, the boards, and the management of the town have viewed this not necessarily as a sole source provider, because there are other folks that do it. But I think we have such a good relationship, and the fees are lower than what other towns are paying. Like you can see that. And I think it makes sense to kind of stick with them.
So you're just looking for a motion to enter into the agreement with Waste Management
Pending legal review. Yep.
for the next 5 years?
Yes, please, Madam Chair.
Stop saying that stuff. That was a motion by Jim.
Second,
Second by Wendy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous, Joe. Okay, correspondence, you have none this evening. Old business, planning consultant. Joe, I'm gonna let you, just because this is a very wordy paragraph and you know what you put in it, so how about you give us the update on this one too, please?
I'll try to move it down that too. So the interview panel. There was one of the select people, code enforcement officer and myself. Met with all of the planning consultants that responded to us. And just for the record, one of them is AvCog, and we have a relationship with him. Anyway, but they did put their hat in the ring. We scored them, we interviewed them, we scored them, we talked about it, we debriefed. And we decided that we would work with LK Planning. She has experience as a planner in several Maine municipalities. Got along really well with her, and we decided we would attempt to work with her or work something out with her. And then we also, in our conversation, decided that it would make sense if we could get AvCog involved. They could help us with a lot of the data, tables, updating table information and the data. So in preparing for this meeting, preparing for getting a presentation for you folks, I did speak with both groups, and AvCog used to, back when John Maloney was there, so now Frank Maloney. Way back when a lot of towns, around 2010, 2012, state of Maine was financing a lot of comp plans for towns. So it really wasn't much of a struggle to find out, you know, where the money was gonna come from through AvCog, or really the state was paying for it through the planning office. That program has gone away, so now really, if you're gonna have the assistance of AvCog, there's some things that are covered under our agreement, you know, our membership dues and so forth, and some things will be covered, the housing should be covered under the grant that you wrote a letter of support for through the governor's office a while ago. But it's not a zero sum game, it's the estimate is around 12,000 from AvCog. And through negotiation, the updated proposal from LK is 45,000. But I'm requesting 46 just because there's a per meeting fee and I want to have a couple of extra in there. So what I'm looking for is authorization to work on agreements with both parties. I'll start with LK, not to exceed 46 for her, and then not to exceed 12 for AvCog. Now, this is why it's a long paragraph. We have $45,000 in that line in the planned budget. 25 is carried forward, 20 was raised appropriate for this year. That's not all going to be due between now and June. They're going to be benchmarks from each consultant. So the 45 will cover us through June 30, and then we'll have to raise the remaining 12 or 13 when we do our budgeting, which we've raised at least 20 in the last couple of years, so that shouldn't be a problem for us. Just kind of want to put that out there. We clearly don't have the whole 58 or 9 in this year's budget, but we won't be spending it all. This is going to be a year-long project. So that's my recommendation, is to select OK Planning and AvCog to work with the committee and staff, and that should be said publicly. You know, committee has already done a lot of work on this, and they're going to continue to be actively part of this process, as will staff and I. And just for comparison, I called Dave Coda in Carabasset Valley because I knew they were working on a similar thing. They had 3 bids. One was in the mid-60s, the other 2 were over 100,000, and they ended up selecting the person in the firm in the mid-60s. So even at 58, I'm comfortable that we're doing okay. I think that was longer than the paragraph.
It's okay. I think it needed all needed to be said, so. So you're looking for.
In the italics, I think, authorizing me to execute an agreement with LKP not to exceed 46,000. Including a couple of extra meetings.
Jimmy, it's all written out for you.
I see it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Can I get reread it or just easy enough.
I suppose for the sake of the record, that was a motion by Jim to recommend authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement with LKP not to exceed 46,000. And an agreement with AvCog not to exceed 12,000 to update the comprehensive plan. Second. Motion by Jim, second by Sam. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Law enforcement coverage is kind of a placeholder at this point. We are still actively working on what is going to be the best type of coverage for our community, and we will continue to do that diligently, I promise. Next. CRIC bylaws, second reading. Okay. So we have approached these bylaws as we would oh my goodness, yep, sorry, train of thought, just be real, just like that. Thank you, policy, that's the word I couldn't think of. So we've approached the bylaws and reading them as we would any standard policy. They go a first reading, a second reading, they can be adopted at the second reading if everyone is comfortable with the language. So we just need a motion to approve the second reading and then, and to approve the
Motion
bylaws.
to approve the second reading and adopt the bylaws.
Second.
Motion by Wendy, I'm listening, second by Jim, go ahead.
Madam Chair, if the board would also consider continuing with current appointments to the RIC committee.
I was gonna handle that as a separate motion, only because I thought it pertinent to pull it apart from the bylaws. Joe, do you want it as the same?
It can be two separate.
Okay,
Just wanted to
Yep.
make sure.
no, I just kind of felt like it should be pulled apart from the actual bylaws. Motion by Wendy, second by Jim, any further discussion? Mr. Beauregard.
Mark Beauregard, 183 Pleasant Street. On these, I was on page 2, one of the duties and powers. That the CRIC is tasked with. I was just wondering if, as they're reviewing all these things, if they couldn't also, prepare some type of progress report from when the 2012 plan was adopted, because I've watched a lot of the boards of selectmen, there hasn't been a committee like there is set up right now, but a lot of the selectmen have tackled the issues in that comprehensive plan and have made quite a bit of progress. Just for example, they came up with the Economic Opportunity Committee, the Downtown Revitalization Committee, the idea of a contract planner. They changed the parking on Main Street from diagonal to parallel to improve the traffic park. They had the sidewalk built up to the scenic overlook from downtown. They put playground equipment in the Aquatic Park. They did the drainage in the town park, and they resumed quarterly meetings and that type of thing. And I just think it's important to recognize that there has been some progress, and so that people just don't think that nothing was ever done with that 2012 plan up until now. And I just think it's good for also the extension of the runway up at the airport of 1,100 feet, you know, which.
Yeah, no, thank you so much Mike, for pointing that out.
Seeing as they're digging through it, it seems likely to me that they'd have the handle on what's been accomplished. But
Yeah,
you know, I'm throwing that out there for discussion. That's just my suggestion, that they do it. I don't know who else would do it. Maybe you have a better idea. Okay.
no, thank you so much, Mark, for your input. I will let you know that that is being, they have kind of tasked several members of the community to let them know what has been completed. They've reached out to the chamber. A lot of the other boards and committees have been asked to kind of go through the list and check off what has been done. I know there were extensive conversations. So there is a working list of tasks completed, which I'm sure the group will put into a report when it comes to these are the next steps and this is what we need to do because this is what has been done. I don't mean to speak for the committee, but I know that from conversations I've had with committee members.
It seems like the selectmen, the past boards of selectmen have been the most active, and not necessarily any subcommittees in accomplishing these things. So I don't know how some of these other committees will be aware of what's been accomplished.
Because if they're committee members, they should be paying attention to all town politics. Just saying. Did you have any additional things to offer? I mean, I know that you guys are working on that extensive document and checking off what has been done and what's been completed to date, and that I just make the assumption that that will generate some type of report.
Yes, that is absolutely what's happening. And, you know, some of the actionable steps will be ongoing because it's work that still needs to be carried forward because there is no completion on it. You know, it's just an ongoing issue. And we have divided up the workload, and because we currently don't have a town planner, we're going to be collaborating on that one element, but everything else in the plan has been updated. As far as what's been
These
completed.
action things contained in this, they're not item specific, you know, they're generalized. And
Some of them are, yeah, and some of them are specific and directed towards specific groups and committees.
Yeah.
And that's the list that they've been working on diligently.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your feedback, Mark. Any additional comments or? Perfect. All right, we'll move on to Rangeley Lake Builder Supply electronic sign. Yes, Joe.
And Chair, I didn't record the vote for them. That motion.
Maybe because I didn't finish taking. No, I didn't.
No vote.
No, I didn't. I let Mark talk.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry. It was a motion by Wendy, second by Jim. Discussion by Mr. Beauregard. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Sorry about that, Joe. I missed one. It's my first one.
You're allowed.
Okay. Now moving on to Rangeley Lakes Builder Supply electronic sign. Hi, guys.
Hi.
We didn't know we were on the agenda.
Joe, did you want to offer an update really quick and then?
So I don't remember the date, it was earlier in the summer, there was a report from code enforcement that, you know, the sign was up. The board talked about it, the board made a decision to direct the town's attorney to send correspondence to folks that own the sign. And the sign went dark, we figured it was over with for the time being, or over with it completely. Then it went live again. And it was reported to me by code enforcement, and because it was at this level, I talked to the attorney about it. And he said, you know, should I send a second letter? And I said, yes. And I'll update the board now. The reason I said go ahead and send it is because I know this fine is accumulated daily, out of respect for them, and wanted to get the letter out there, so they knew about that as soon as possible. So really, the update is that there's a follow-up letter from the town's attorney. You know, basically letting the folks know that we're requesting that the sign is removed, or court action could result. Will result.
And this notice has been issued because of the current sign ordinance, correct? It is based on the standing sign ordinance.
Correct, yeah, it
In
has
which
to do
this is a violation.
with, it has to do with it internally and with native signs.
Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments?
We do have one question. There are other internally illuminated signs in town. And so we would wonder and ask why we are being asked to turn ours off and the others are not.
Very good question, Madam Chair. And I've spoken about this with code enforcement, with the town's attorney. And the two or three that have been brought to my attention have, and I'm just gonna say this because it's a fact, not because I have any opinion about it, but they've been granted permits. As I understand it, those two or three have permits. And there's some of them are several years old, many years old, at least 5 or 6 or older.
So chapter 38 was written how many years ago, which was the exclusion to electronic signs. I'm assuming it's 20 years old.
At least.
At least. So I know that at least 2 of those signs are less than 10 years old with the permits that have been issued for them. So they were given an exception to the chapter. We're looking for the same exception, and I believe Val is looking for the same exception as
Have you
well.
gone before the planning board for that
I
exception?
just filed a petition to go. in
Yeah,
front of
because
the
that
board.
is the steps to the process, is you would need to go before the planning board with your sign permit.
Madam Chair, this is actually a function of code enforcement.
Yeah.
The code enforcement office issue, or not issue,
Okay,
sign permits.
okay.
However, I was told to go in front of the board of zoning and appeals.
So
After denial from the planning board.
couple of updates, Madam Chair, like a really fresh, recent updates. There was an application made, I think, around the time of this letter, but it wasn't completed because the sign went dark, and I think it was, everybody understood it was just not gonna proceed. At the request of the property owner, that application was reviewed by code enforcement recently within the last few days. And denied, formally denied, and that was where the notification to the owner was that you may appeal this, you have the right to appeal this. to the zoning board of appeals. They're the appeals function for decisions of certain decisions of code enforcement and planning. So that's where that is at in the process.
Okay,
It's probably important that you know that, but it doesn't change the fact that there's a violation ongoing,
okay,
which is what this letter addressed.
okay. So the letter was issued in an effort to make them aware of daily fines that you were trying to. Yeah. Yikes, yeah. And you understand where you are in the process, Adam, or is that where the confusion is?
I don't think there's any confusion. I think that we're trying to get the same exception that has been allowed for 3 other businesses in town that have the exact same type of sign that we're looking to put out there. And so I guess I just don't understand why there's an exception on one side of the fence and then there isn't when the movie theater and us apply to have the same type of a sign.
Yes.
Did you guys originally go through the process before putting up the sign?
No, it was an after the fact that I did
So you
apply
just put up the
the
sign.
permit after, it was about a week afterwards. I did put in the permit back in, it would have been in May and I didn't get any response.
But you
Until
put up
I
the sign
actually.
first
Correct.
and then.
Yep.
So most people go through the process. And that's what the other, well, I can speak for my own business, that we went through the process and were
Understand.
approved.
Yep.
Before even putting up the sign. So,
I think the reason we didn't actually put a permit in before is because it was an exact change. It was the same size, same amount of lettering as was there before. Our sign has always had lights on it, and so it was just a replacement of our letter boards were all broken, and so we were replacing broken. We replaced our broken letter boards before and never needed a permit to do that, so I think that was naivety in thinking that we were just replacing in kind.
So bear with me just one moment, Tony. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page and know exactly what process has occurred. So these folks have submitted a sign permit application to the proper channel, which is the code enforcement officer. That sign permit has been denied. They now have the opportunity to appeal that.
That is correct.
Okay. I would continue down the path that is in front of you. And any other questions, comments?
No, I was just like to say that when we did our goals and we were talking about, you know, as a team up here, what we are looking to accomplish. One of the things I think is important for Rangeley is to attack the sign ordinance. And I would recommend extracting it from chapter 38 and having it be a standalone ordinance. But I think there's a lot of work that has to be done on it. I think there's a lot of updating, and I think that, you know, if you're patient and you work, you know, with that process, I think a lot of people, especially the theater, just using a little bit of brain power and adding in a few more definitions that are more current and up to date and speak specifically to usage and not just broad brush internally illuminated signs. Because in Rangeley, nobody wants to see a Jiffy Lube sign. Nobody wants to see a Best Buy sign, you know, but there are possibly opportunities for something that delivers a municipal message that would be internally illuminated, or that has a marquee, or that, yeah, I mean, there might be opportunities, but that's up for discussion. So I think you kind of fell through the cracks a little bit, and I feel badly that happened to you. But I think we can work together to make a situation hopefully improve, you know, with everyone's way in.
We do too, and you know, we are lovers of Rangeley, having grown up here. We want nothing more than to make sure that the character of Rangeley stays the same, while also, you know, having an eye for the future and technology and how that's going to change us. But I agree, we do need to control it and make sure that we don't have those big bright illuminated signs and put some rules on it. We feel strongly about that too, and we have our, you know, it will be turned off tomorrow. That's the 17th, that's the date. But you know, we have dark sky features put on that. We have only black and white, very cognizant of how that affects the community, so we appreciate that as well.
I'd like to give a little different scenario in terms of what Virginia's talking about. I'm vice president of the RFA board, sitting next to Valerie, who is the president. When we first talked about having a sign, marquee and so forth, we had it drawn up, etc. And we had a meeting set up with a guy from Vermont, the sign company, with the code enforcement officer. Says the code enforcement officer, it's a great thing. You're right within code. I'm seeing what he's proposing, and this is what we would see, and this is how I think the town will proceed. Based on that, I think you would agree that you've got the code enforcement officer saying yes, and you've got the sign guy working together. He leaves. That's what I was talking about earlier. This is kind of an Andy Mayberry scenario. The next code enforcement comes. Oh, you can't put that sign up. That's not the code. We don't have this policy, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, what about the buggy house? Well, that kind of backed in, and then there was talk, it wasn't the code, etc. And then it finally went away, and that sign exists to this day, and I think it's fine. I don't think it is a jiffy move. The sign that we had proposed was to try to even make things a little safer. You come at that theater now, you stop at a train, what's that say? That boom, somebody can come right in behind in the car. Or you got somebody coming up this way, and they're trying to read that sign. This was going to be to code, so it could be read both ways. It would not be going 24 hours a day, and it was going to be doing everything that the code enforcement officer asked for. When the second guy came on the scene, was it the woman? The woman came on the scene. She said no. So we have now been scampering to try to come up with some half-assed thing to try to advertise what the movie theater does. It's an anchor in downtown. Even the planning, the committee for improvement, etc. we were talking about before, felt that it would be helpful into the town. It's very hard to say, well, business wants you to come, but you can't advertise. And if you do, it's got to be something painted, a nail on the front of the building, and it can't change. So I use that as a Class A example of how we work with the system that the town manager is talking about. But because we had two different code enforcement officers, the thing died in the water.
Because we didn't read the ordinance.
The cows can come home, but when you got two arguing on whether it can be done or can't, it is what's different. I'm also was the president of the historical society in town. If you go down to the historical society and look, let's use the old tattlers, the old yearbooks when they used to advertise. You look at pictures of Main Street and Rangeley. It looks the same today as it did in 1890. Literally.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't have anything wrong with that. The business has just changed. The facade looks the same. It's kind of a front like a gun smoke, that the flat things in the front of a building. And so I'm just saying, I think you have to re-examine the whole sign issue. And
we
code, and we know things tend to move slowly. But here's a case where the theater tried to work with the system. The first one said yes, the second one said no. So I could never make sense out of it.
Thank you so much for the feedback, Tony. I don't mean to cut you off or continue to cut you off, but we were talking about a specific subject matter, and I do apologize. If you'd like to give input for electronic signs, the board is going to designate that as a duty of the ordinance committee, and I don't believe we've actually officially done that. So if we want to follow this up with that motion to do so, that would be fabulous, so they can get started on that. I know that it's very important that that sign ordinance be addressed. And if you'd like to come to the ordinance committee meetings and give feedback on the signs, that would be fabulous, and I'd appreciate it.
Who's on the ordinance committee?
Me, Val Zapolsky, Nancy Douglas, Scott Wilson.
That's it. Is it a nominated committee, or do you like?
We are appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Appointed by the board.
Yeah.
But you can volunteer. Well, my plate's a little full right now.
All right, so I believe that is all set. Anybody opposed to? No, we'll do that after new business, I guess, where we designate that duty to the ordinance committee, unless somebody wants to do it now. I don't. Yeah, we'll do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully this all gets sorted out.
So Madam Chair, in the letter from the town's attorney to the bonds, Steve Langsdorff writes that this letter is informing that unless the sign has been permanently removed no later than October 17th, just tomorrow, the town will file legal action. So this is what stands with them. The board, if you agree with that, you should vote to affirm it. If you have a different opinion, you should vote to clarify that at this point. I think I heard that they intend to turn it off tomorrow.
May I add one more thing? I mean, we do hope to move forward in this process of appeal, so taking it down is a significant process. So I wondered if we could turn it off, go through the appeals process and not be asked to remove it. I mean, we'll keep it off obviously until we get a final resolution on the appeals process.
Do we have your word on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course, I'm gonna turn it off tonight when I go home.
You know,
It goes dark sky at 10 and it won't come back on after that, so. We would never want to be in violation of the town. That wasn't our intention in the beginning at all.
We're notified and then you did, you know. and then you-
Well, we were notified
And then
and then
we
we
were
filed for
notified,
the,
and I filed for a permit.
and we never heard back.
There was never a response from the town, and I had to ask a second time for a response for a formal either approval or denial of the permit. And that was like this week, and I put the permit in back in May 25th, that's when I filed it.
We just didn't hear back, so we thought perhaps that the issue had been bypassed, and so we had an electrical shortage in our underground conduit, and when we fixed it, we just had it turned back on. We didn't realize that there was still such an issue with the violation. We got the letter and we immediately started making phone calls to figure out how to rectify it.
So. What is on the table then is Joe either suggested that we. Make a motion to move forward with this, or we can. Make some changes in suggested language. Whatever your pleasure is. Are we comfortable with them just turning it off rather than removing it?
I'm comfortable with them just turning it off because they're in a state of flux right now. And, you know, you didn't get a response since May and you are going through the appeals process. So, you know, and if it does work out in your favor, then you won't have incur the expense of extracting and then installation again. And I don't think it harms anything to have a sign blackened. It's just there, you know.
I need that in the form of a motion.
Oh.
Well, we're still discussing.
Like, yeah.
Well, we can have a motion, a second, and discussion,
Um,
if there is.
motion to allow the sign just to be turned off and darkened during this period of analysis.
Motion by Wendy, is there a second? I will second it. Okay, now the discussion.
So yeah, just my concern is, Madam Chair, that, you know, that you do follow the process, you know, and, you know, and not take things into your own hands because you haven't heard anything. I mean, you're setting a really bad example in town. I mean, you're just giving people the idea that they can just, you know, turn on, make signs because somebody else has one, or because, you know, I mean, does that make sense? Like, I mean, I'm all for people having signs, but if you go through the process, you know, and I know that didn't happen. Everybody here knows that didn't happen. So, I mean, I'm for you not having to take it down, but I just really want to make sure that you guys respect, as you say, you love this town, will act like it and respect it. You know, so that was a really big middle finger, almost. You know,
That wasn't how it was intended at all, so.
that's how I think I've heard a lot of people. So I'm good with moving forward. I said my piece. Thank you.
Anything further from the board, Val?
Just because usually when somebody goes through the process of appeal, they usually all penalties and or activities that would be imposed are usually suspended during the appeal process. I just wanted to point that out. That since they are appealing, they really should be not penalized during that appeal.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That was 3, 4, 1 against. All right, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Banking RFP. Am I correct in reading the notes that the banking RFP is pretty much just been given to us to review and that we'll actually discuss it in detail at our next meeting? Yeah.
Correct.
We did receive banking RFPs from Franklin Savings Bank, Skowhegan Savings, Camden National. And the same goes for the investment RFPs, Joe. Those are to be discussed at a later meeting. They were provided, copies were provided to us. We received investment RFPs from Franklin Savings Bank, First National Wealth Management, and Camden National. Okay. Fuel bids. Okay, we went out to bid for heating fuel for fiscal year 24. We received 2 responses, one from SK Quality Fuels, one from Dead River Company. They each provided a number 2 heating oil cost and a kerosene per gallon cost. Sorry, both were per gallon. I forgot to use the language in the first one.
Make a motion to approve the Dead River response for requests. Number 2, heating oil and kerosene.
Second,
Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. For the, any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Operations updates. Is this the second one?
Yep.
Joe, did you want to offer any operations updates other than what's already in your town manager report, or did you want to roll into the town manager report as an operations update?
Yes. I have just a couple of notes. I put some information in there about the tennis courts, and this is not really an action item, it's really more about information, but I want to give the public and the board kind of a sense of what the engineers and Patrick and Tracy and I are kind of looking at. We had talked a while ago about would it make sense to have clay courts in Aquasic as opposed to pavement, and the engineers did that analysis for us. Long story short, it's much more labor intensive to have clay. It's a more friendly service for tennis players, but not for pickleball players. So really the best recommendation is to stick with an acrylic coated asphalt. And I'm just gonna go ahead and let them know that, but I wanted you to know that Patrick would like the fire commission know too. So that, you know, kind of gives you a sense of that question, but it also gives you a sense of where the design process is at, you know, like looking at the court. So right now, that's kind of the only update I have on it. That I wanted to share with you.
Yes, we have a question.
On that, as far as I totally agree with the asphalt, but while they're in the design process, is it possible to look into creating in the winter time, like it's being turned into a skating rink and getting the boards to so that it'd be multiple use as well as obviously the pickleball, but then in the winter time, you know, putting in a nice, I've just been researching that and it is definitely doable and not costly, really.
I can check with them when follow up on the courts and see
What kind of impact does the frozen water have on the surface over time?
It's a plastic layer. Yeah, a lot of towns do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you seal up.
You don't-
it's like a mini pool,
Yeah.
you know,
And then you put the boards on and.
Right.
It's,
And it does, well, it's still same, the weight of that structure doesn't, how does that impact the
I haven't
surface of
done
the
that
court?
research.
it's just like a stadium, you know, I mean, they put ice over, you know, floors in the stadium and it's fine. There's only like that much ice,
But it might change the dimensions of where you put the fencing at.
right?
So that would be something I'd like them to look into as far as design, I guess.
would the board like more information on that?
I don't think it's a terrible idea to have multiple uses for our properties. I mean, that's a great idea.
Just for them to look into.
Yeah.
as far as-
Yeah. Um,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
let me make a note about the ice rink. While I do that, I did share with the board. The first printout that I made, from the iWork system. I did it orderly because we don't have all of the permits from. The first quarter or two of this year, we weren't putting them in yet, we were just learning how to use it. But real quick, in case anybody's wondering, 52 building permits. In this quarter three, not this quarter, last quarter. Yeah, shoreline zoning, demolition 5, shoreline zoning 1, and if you look at the second graph I gave you. So there are 52 building permits, but 37 of them have been approved, 15 still need additional info, so it kind of shows. The progress of what's happened. And of course, on our end, we have all kinds of detail on this that, you know. Wouldn't make any sense for an executive level, you know, presentation, but this kind of gives you a snapshot, that's busy, 52 building permits in 1 quarter.
It's great.
I can remember years ago, because my office was next to code enforcement, I think in a whole year was 60 or 70 building permits. So that should give some idea about how busy code enforcement is, and what the building environment looks like here.
I think really, there was like 150 still waiting, like pending or.
Don't have that for sure, but as we move on, I
Like
can get
they're
you
still
more
waiting to
refined.
be approved.
In my report, you've got a lot of things there in notes. We did hire someone for the front office position, office assistant, customer service, so that's full. The only 2 full-time positions remaining in police, which we're talking about policy level here, policy budget, and then fleet mechanic, which I've just re-advertised again, and it's lukewarm response, so. But that is a good feeling for me that we're at that spot. You know, where we don't have as many openings.
No, that's great news.
That's
That's
great.
fabulous. That's how many positions are open. for
Open
fleet.
in Maine.
73 positions in the state of Maine for fleet mechanics open.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, and they're, the pay rate is from $27 to $40 an hour all over the place. And Saddleback is looking for one too. So that might be an interesting conversation. If you can pool resources, if, I don't know what the scope of work is or the workload, if it's compatible, but. I mean, if you've been looking for this person for 2 years and, I mean, this is just on Indeed too.
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw your ad.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, that's a lot of open positions for a very specific type of work.
Yeah.
Is the alternative just to contract out that work to existing shops?
I don't know if it's quite that simple. So the position, I'll give you a little further background on it. The position is open, so to speak. There is a person filling that position now because of the way the contract works, but that person would like us to hire somebody to fill it so that they can go back to their previous job that they're doing simultaneously. So it's not like it's completely not getting done. They're actually working together, and I'm exploring ways that, you know, they may work together Through sidebars that don't involve extra money, but I am looking at that with Annalee and shop steward and others, other ways that we can bridge the gap, at least until we have, somebody in that spot. So that, to answer your question, some of this work could be outsourced, but there are union employees in the position, so it's not that simple.
Right, okay.
Now, if the workload and the skill set doesn't match, they will say, hey, can we job this out? Absolutely. If they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. But at management, if there's somebody in that position, even if they're just filling it, I can't just carte blanche say, no, we're contracting this all out, it'll be a violation. But conversations that I've been having with the shop steward and Annalee. What do we do? How do we move forward? And I did know about the number that you said, the hourly rate. We the last contract went from high teens, low 20s, high 20s. It was the largest jump range in history, probably.
Yeah.
And the union was okay with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Management was okay with it. It's just important to it. But I still think we're not quite to where, to your point, when some of them are 40. And that number was tossed around 3 years ago. We're like, no, that's high,
And sign-on bonuses and everything like that. I mean, there's just a big need.
My only concern with sign-on bonuses is it tends to tell people who have worked with you consistently over the years that they aren't worth the money that you've
I'm
thrown.
not
at
saying
the
we should
tires.
do it.
No, but I'm just saying, I have a real issue with sign-on bonuses. Huge, they create an underriff and a conflict with your current staff that is just unbelievable.
Just a follow comment from what Wendy had said, the a few years ago, I mean, the school has been without their own mechanic. They, we looked at possible, it's just touched on, two public services needing, the same, and they now contract help. So it's one of those trades that more kids going into it.
Madam Chair, one more thing on code enforcement, it actually relates to the sewer plant F-150, which I signed the documents last thing Friday, I think. So the new one is gonna be in transit. The one that's replacing, I was looking at the budget, talking with the code enforcement officer, I mean, doing the number of inspections that are happening, we're already over what's in the mileage line in that account. So in the past, just a little more history. The white pickup that's out here when Parks and Recreation and Public Services was vacant, a truck. I used it once in a while to go to the airport, so forth. That could be used by code enforcement previously, but now that that position is filled, that truck's being used by Parks and Rec Director. So code enforcement is using their own vehicles. We reimburse mileage. I think it makes sense. I know it makes sense to have a vehicle for them. This is not the most fuel efficient one. This replace the truck that we're replacing the sewer plant. It's an F-250, but it's at least good enough to get us from here until July 1. We can talk about it in the budget process. I think there's a cruiser that's up next year in the capital plans, and that would make probably better for folks in the vehicle. Just in case you're wondering what's going to happen with that truck, we can still sell it. It's not part of the lease deal. The lease was a standalone $45,000 deal. It's done. The truck can be sold through municipal bid or however we want to do it. But at least as a stopgap, I intend to use that for code enforcement. Just want you to be aware of that. Absentee ballots are available for state referendum. There's a citizen guide to voting on the website. Maybe that's what I have.
Well, you presented the grant status worksheet to us. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions on that? And the calendar. It's January 2nd, one of our regular meetings anyway.
I believe so, so January 1 is Monday, but that's obviously a holiday. Oh, something's on there. What's on there? Must be, but yeah,
It's board.
it's
Somebody already moved us.
somebody already moved in color.
Yeah.
Took me a minute to figure that out. Yeah, so the CRC would like to meet with you, just have a meet and greet, do an update. At 5:30, if that's okay with you on that night.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds like a great idea.
5:30.
I promised to show them as much excitement as I did Jonathan tonight, but he was the first one.
That'd be great.
I was so happy. All right, do we have any other business this evening, folks?
Your next meeting date?
Our next meeting date,
First Monday.
first Monday of the month.
November 6th.
All right, anything else? Select board communications, we don't have any, do we? Anybody? No, so, no. Perfect. We already had the executive session, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Tim. Second by Sam. All those in favor? That is you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark, have a good